All right, welcome. This is Trusted Academy, and my name is Caleb Mills. Over the past week, we have been talking about the unincorporated business trust, and that's what we're going to continue learning about today. So this week we have went over a brief introduction of the unincorporated business trust in lesson 1, and then lesson 2 was trustees and governance. Lesson 3, legal structure and property ownership. Lesson 4, beneficiaries and enjoyment. Lesson 5, we've got to get that one. That one still needs a little fixing. Lesson 6, records and management. And today is lesson 7, business transactions. In this lesson, we explore how a business trust carries out significant business activities, including mergers, consolidations, and the sale of substantial assets, while maintaining its legal and fiduciary responsibilities. The focus is on understanding the decision-making safeguards that protect both the trust and its beneficiaries. You'll learn how these transactions require approval from a majority of trustees along with a 2/3 supermajority of voting beneficiaries, ensuring that no major decision can be taken lightly or without broad consent. The lesson also explains the role of ascertainable standard, which limits distributions to clear and defined purposes such as support, maintenance, education, medical needs, and emergencies. This standard acts as a guidepost, preventing misuse or arbitrary allocation of trust assets. Additionally, we examine how spendthrift provisions safeguard a beneficiary's interest by protecting assets from creditors, personal misuse, or even risks associated with bankruptcy. By the end of this lesson, you will understand how these built-in legal mechanisms create a balanced framework for trust governance, allowing trustees to execute complex business transactions while protecting the long-term interest of beneficiaries. Business transactions. In this lesson, you'll discover how trusts engage in lawful business activities, structure transactions, and protect assets. We'll explore practical methods for handling contracts, payments, and dealings with third parties, ensuring compliance, privacy, and security while maintaining the trust's independence. Introduction. Business trusts are established not only to hold and manage property, but also to carry out business activities with flexibility and accountability. Just like corporations, these trusts inevitably face moments where significant decisions must be made, such as merging with another entity, consolidating operations, selling valuable assets, or distributing funds to beneficiaries. These are not routine transactions, rather, they are high impact moves that can reshape the trust's direction, alter its structure, and directly influence the well being of its beneficiaries. Because of their importance, they must be approached with both strategic foresight and strict governance safeguards. This lesson highlights 3 critical governance tools that guide these decisions. Merger, consolidation, and sale of assets. Article 19 provides the framework for major structural changes in the trust. 2. Ascertainable standard for distribution. Article 20 establishes a clear, fair, and needs-based guideline for when and how distributions may be made to beneficiaries. Spendthrift provisions. Article 21 ensures protection of trust assets from creditors, misuse, or financial mismanagement, thereby preserving value for the long term. Together, these articles form a balanced governance framework that keeps the trust operations legally sound and compliant, ensures beneficiaries' rights are respected and protected, and safeguards trust property from unnecessary risks and external threats. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to 1. Describe the process and requirements for merging, consolidating, or selling major trust assets. 2. Understand why beneficiary approval is essential for large-scale business transactions. 3. Explain the ascertainable standard and how it guides trustees in making responsible distributions. 4. Recognize how spendthrift provisions protect beneficiaries and preserve the trust integrity. 5. Apply these concepts to real-world trust management decisions. Mergers, consolidations, and sales of assets. Article 19. Trustee authority with safeguards. The Declaration of Trust grants trustees the authority to make significant structural changes when necessary. This includes the power to merge the trust into another organization, consolidate with similar entities, or sell, lease, or exchange substantially all of the trust property. These powers apply to both tangible assets such as land, buildings, or other real estate, and intangible assets like goodwill, brand reputation, or contractual rights. Such provisions will give the trust the flexibility to adapt to new opportunities, restructure when needed, or realign its resources to better serve its long-term mission. However, these powers are not unlimited. To protect the interest of the beneficiaries and to ensure accountability, the Declaration builds in specific safeguards that prevent trustees from acting unilaterally The Declaration builds in specific safeguards that prevent trustees from acting unilaterally in matters that could reshape the trust structure or purpose. Trustee majority approval. At least a majority of trustees must vote in favor of any proposed merger, consolidation, or sale. This ensures that no single trustee can impose a major decision without the agreement of others. Beneficiary supermajority approval. In addition, at least 2/3 of all voting beneficiaries must approve the transaction. This safeguard ensures that beneficiaries, the true equitable owners of the trust, have a meaningful say in transformative changes. Together, these dual checks establish a balanced governance framework. Trustees are empowered to guide the trust through major transitions, but they must do so with shared agreement and oversight. Beneficiaries, in turn, are given an active role in shaping the trust's future, ensuring that decisions serve the collective good rather than the will of a few individuals. Why it matters? This framework balances flexibility with accountability. Trustees are empowered to pursue growth opportunities or restructure the trust when needed, but only with meaningful input and approval from beneficiaries. This ensures that major decisions are collectively approved, not unilaterally imposed. Beneficiaries' rights and interests remain central in governance. Transactions gain legitimacy in the eyes of courts, regulators, and third parties. In short, these rules make sure that transformative changes strengthen the trust rather than undermine it. Purpose and impact of merger and sale rules. Balancing flexibility with protection. The rules governing mergers, consolidations, and sales of assets are designed to achieve an important balance in trust governance. On one hand, trustees must have the flexibility to guide the trust through growth opportunities, restructuring, or even liquidation when circumstances require it. On the other hand, beneficiaries must be shielded from unilateral decisions that could drastically change the trust structure or diminish their rights. By requiring both trustee majority approval and beneficiary supermajority approval, the declaration of the trust ensures that decisions are both practical and fair. This balance also reflects the dual nature of trust governance. Trustees serve as managers and decision makers, but beneficiaries are the true equitable owners. Requiring their approval ensures that transformative actions are not only efficient but also rooted in the consent and protection of ownership interests. It prevents a small group from imposing challenges that could alter the trust direction, while still giving the trustees authority to adapt when opportunities or challenges arise. In this way, the system builds stability, accountability, and fairness into every major transaction. Flexibility for trustees. These rules give trustees the ability to pursue expansion, mergers, or restructuring, or even liquidate assets if necessary. This ensures that the trust can remain adaptable in a changing business and financial environment. Protection for beneficiaries. Major changes cannot take place without the active involvement of beneficiaries. Their supermajority approval protects their equitable ownership rights and guarantees that they have a say in transformative decisions. Legal strength. The dual approval process provides legitimacy and legal recognition to trustee actions. Courts, regulators, and third parties are more likely to respect and uphold decisions that reflect both trustee leadership and beneficiary consent. Example in practice. For example, if a trust decides to merge with another business entity, the process cannot be completed without ensuring that beneficiaries are fairly recognized for their ownership interest. In practice, this means that the units of beneficial interest held by each beneficiary in the original trust must be converted or exchanged into a comparable ownership interest in the new organization. By doing so, beneficiaries do not lose their stake, rather, their rights are carried forward into the merged entity. This safeguards provides several benefits. It ensures that beneficiaries continue to enjoy the economic value and voting rights tied to their ownership. It prevents dilution or loss of control, and it maintains a sense of continuity and fairness throughout the transition. Without such protections, beneficiaries could risk losing influence or having their interests diminished during a major restructuring. Ultimately, this example shows how the dual approved system works in practice. Trustees may negotiate and execute a merger, but beneficiaries' approval ensures that the outcome respects their ownership rights. The end result is a transaction that is both legally strong and equitable to all parties involved. Purpose and impact of merger and sale rules. Okay. Ascertainable standard for distribution, Article 20. Setting limits on trustee discretion. One of the most important responsibilities of trustees is deciding how and when to distribute trust property or income. If left entirely to personal judgment, this power could be exercised inconsistently, unfairly, or even subjectively, leading to disputes among beneficiaries and exposing trustees to claims of favoritism or mismanagement. To prevent such risk, Article 20 introduces the ascertainable standard, a legal safeguard that sets out clear, objective categories for when distributions are appropriate. The standard ensures that every payout is connected to a legitimate, demonstrable need, not to personal preferences or arbitrary decisions by trustees. By defining boundaries, it promotes consistency, fairness, and accountability in trust management. It also reassures beneficiaries that distributions will be based on recognized purposes, such as support, education, or medical needs, rather than the changing opinions of trustees. In this way, the ascertainable standard protects both trustees and beneficiaries, creating a framework where resources are used wisely while still meeting genuine personal and family needs. Support and maintenance. Distributions may cover a beneficiary's basic living expenses, such as food, shelter, clothing, and utilities. This ensures that beneficiaries can meet their everyday needs. Trustees may provide for personal needs that enhance comfort, and quality of life, such as modest lifestyle expenses or supportive services that protect a beneficiary's dignity. Education. Funds can be allocated to pay for school tuition, training programs, or learning opportunities, equipping beneficiaries with skills and knowledge to support their future. Medical needs. Distributions may cover health care, treatments, insurance, and essential medical services, ensuring that beneficiaries have access to necessary care without financial strain. Emergency situations. Trustees may also provide financial assistance during unexpected crises or urgent needs, such as natural disasters, job loss, or sudden hardships. Why it matters? The ascertainable standard provides trustees with a measurable guideline that promotes fairness and accountability. While trustees may choose to accumulate income for future use or distribute funds as needed, they must always align their actions with these defined categories. Importantly, when the trust eventually terminates, all remaining assets must be distributed to beneficiaries according to their respective shares, ensuring equity and closure. By limiting trustee discretion and tying distributions to objective needs, Article 20 strikes a balance. Beneficiaries receive meaningful support, trustees are protected from allegations of bias, and the trust assets are preserved for long-term stability. Why an ascertainable standard matters. Okay, that was in that. Legal and practical significance. The ascertainable standard serves as both a legal safeguard and a practical guide for trustees, shaping one of the most sensitive aspects of trust management, the distribution of assets. Without such a rule, trustees could be left with wide discretion, creating a risk of inconsistent decisions, accusations of bias, or even misuse of trust property. By clearly outlining objective purposes for which distributions may be made, the standard removes ambiguity and ensures that every trustee decision is backed by a recognizable and enforceable guideline. From a legal standpoint, this protects trustees by giving them a defensible framework if their actions are ever challenged in court. Judges can look to the standard as an objective measure, shielding trustees from liability so long as they act within its boundaries. From a practical perspective, it reassures beneficiaries that distributions are not based on favoritism or personal judgment, but on genuine needs, such as education, healthcare, or support. This dual function promotes both accountability and trust, ensuring that the trust assets are preserved and applied in ways that fulfill its long-term mission. Legal protection. The standard provides trustees with a clear guideline to follow, shielding them from claims of bias or mismanagement. Courts recognize this rule, which makes trustee decisions more defensible in legal proceedings. Beneficiaries can trust that distributions are based on genuine needs rather than favoritism. This builds confidence and minimizes conflict among beneficiaries. By preventing unnecessary or wasteful payouts, the standard safeguards the trust resources. This ensures that the trust remains strong enough to fulfill its long-term purpose. That was the preservation of assets. I should have read that first. Clarity. In cases of dispute, the ascertainable standard gives courts an objective framework to evaluate trustee decisions. This adds transparency and predictability for both trustees and beneficiaries. Example in practice. For instance, trustees are not permitted to use trust funds for luxury or discretionary spending, such as vacations, expensive gifts, or personal indulgences that do not align with the trust's intended purposes. However, the same trustee may rightfully release funds for legitimate needs like tuition, hospital bills, or essential living expenses. This demonstrates how the ascertainable standard draws a clear line between wants and needs, ensuring that distributions provide real support without undermining the financial stability of the trust. It creates a balance where beneficiaries are cared for responsibly, while the trust resources remain preserved for future obligations and long-term objectives. 1. No luxury spending. Trustees cannot approve distributions for non-essential indulgences such as vacations or lifestyle upgrades. 2. Education support. Tuition fees, training programs, or other educational expenses qualify as valid distributions. 3. Healthcare coverage. Hospital bills, medical treatments, and insurance needs can be funded under this standard. 4. Living essentials. Basic costs like food, shelter, clothing, and utilities are considered valid purposes. 5. Balanced approach. Ensures trustees provide necessary support while safeguarding trust assets for continuity. Spendthrift Provisions, Article 21. Protecting beneficiaries from creditors and misuse. Spendthrift provisions are among the most powerful protections in trust law because they ensure that a beneficiary's interest in the trust is completely shielded from outside interference and personal misuse. Without these safeguards, a beneficiary could jeopardize their inheritance by selling it to third parties, pledging it as collateral for risky loans, or losing it to creditors during times of financial hardship. Such actions could undermine the very purpose of the trust, which is to preserve and distribute assets responsibly for the benefit of its beneficiaries. Article 21 addresses these risks by explicitly prohibiting such actions and insulating the trust from external claims. This means that the creditors cannot seize trust assets to cover debts, and beneficiaries themselves cannot misuse their interest for quick cash or speculative ventures. Even in extreme situations such as bankruptcy, the trust property remains protected and continues to serve its original purpose. By closing these gaps, spendthrift provisions uphold both the financial security of the trust and the long-term welfare of the beneficiaries, ensuring that assets remain intact for their intended use. No sale or transfer. A beneficiary's interest in the trust cannot be sold, pledged, or assigned to another party. This prevents beneficiaries from trading away their inheritance or using it irresponsibly. Shield from creditors. Creditors cannot seize trust assets to satisfy a beneficiary's debts. Even in situations like bankruptcy, trust property remains beyond their reach. No collateral use. Beneficiaries are barred from using their trust interest as collateral for loans, ensuring the assets are not put at risk due to personal borrowing or financial missteps. Why it matters? The significance of spendthrift provisions lies in their ability to guarantee the stability and security of trust assets across time and circumstance. By preventing beneficiaries from selling or pledging their interest and by shielding assets from creditor claims, these rules ensure that the trust property is used exclusively for its intended purpose, to support beneficiaries in accordance with the trust design. This protection preserves the trust integrity and prevents external parties from interfering with its administration. Even in difficult circumstances such as bankruptcy, lawsuits, or heavy debt obligations, creditors cannot reach into the trust to satisfy claims. This means that no matter how precarious or a beneficiary's personal financial situation becomes, the assets of the trust remain intact, continuing to serve the long-term objectives set by the trust's creators. For this reason, spendthrift provisions are considered one of the strongest and most effective safeguards in trust law, protecting both the trust itself and the future security of its beneficiaries. Practical effects of spendthrift rules: ensuring stability and security. The practical impact of spendthrift provisions extends far beyond written clauses in the trust document. They actively shape how the trust operates and protected in real life situations. By restricting outsiders from interfering and preventing beneficiaries from misusing their interests, these provisions create a secure environment where trust assets remain intact and directed toward their intended purposes. The stability ensures that the trust can function smoothly even when beneficiaries face financial challenges, lawsuits, or pressure from creditors. Equally important, spendthrift protections establish a sense of continuity across generations. Trust assets are preserved not only for current beneficiaries but also for those who will come after them. Trustees can manage the property with confidence, knowing that it cannot be seized or diminished by outside claims. As a result, the trust maintains both its financial strength and its ability to fulfill the long-term vision set by its creators, no matter how circumstances change around it. For beneficiaries, spendthrift rules safeguard individuals who may lack financial discipline or who might otherwise fall into debt. Their inheritance or income stream is preserved, ensuring that their share continues to provide genuine support over time. For trustees, administration becomes simpler and more secure. With creditors and claimants barred from reaching trust assets, trustees can manage the trust without outside interference, focusing solely on the beneficiary's needs. For the trust as a whole, these provisions maintain the continuity and value of trust property, ensuring it remains intact for future generations. This prevents the erosion of wealth and guarantees that the trust can fulfill its long-term mission. Why it matters? At their core, spendthrift provisions act as a protective shield that guarantees the trust assets are never diverted away from their true purpose. They prevent misuse by beneficiaries who might otherwise waste or trade away their inheritance, and they block outside claims from creditors or legal disputes that could weaken the trust. This means that the property held in trust is consistently applied to its intended purpose, supporting the beneficiaries according to the trust design. For beneficiaries, provides a safety net during financial hardship, bankruptcy, or poor spending habits by keeping their inheritance secure. For trustees, ensures assets remain under trustee management, free from creditor claims or outside interference. For the trust as a whole, preserves the continuity of wealth, protecting both present and future generations. Overall impact safeguards immediate stability while securing the long-term legacy of the trust. Summary, and next up, summary business transactions. In this lesson, we covered the three essential aspects of business transactions in a trust. 1. Merger consolidations and sales of assets. Article 19. Major structural changes require both trustee and beneficiary approval to ensure fairness and continuity. 2. Ascertainable standard for distribution. Article 20. A legal enforceable guideline that enforces distributions that ensures distributions are based on genuine needs, not arbitrary decisions. 3. Spendthrift provisions. Article 21. Powerful protections that shield trust assets from creditors and prevent beneficiaries from squandering their interests. Together, these rules create a comprehensive governance framework that balances authority with accountability. By requiring both trustee approval and beneficiary consent, the trust ensures that major business transactions are carried out responsibly, transparently, and with shared agreement. This dual-check system not only empowers trustees to act when opportunities arise, but also protects beneficiaries from unilateral decisions that could harm their interests, In essence, it secures the trust's ability to adapt and grow while safeguarding the long-term stability and fairness that all parties depend on. Coming up next, in the next lesson, beneficial interest and third-party relations. Next, we'll look at how a trust records beneficiary ownership and builds credibility in its dealings with outside institutions. This lesson will explain the connection between internal ownership rights and external business relationships. All right, that includes today's lesson. Thank you again for your time and attention. If you are interested in any type of courses, course creation, consulting with websites, if you need help with creating a trust, like personal help one-on-one, I would love to help you with that too. My phone number is 618-313-1860, and my business email address is caleb@trustedacademy.net. Again, my name is Caleb Mills, and this is Trusted Academy. So, have a nice day. Thank you. Bye.